Have you ever imagined a country so beautiful it seems like paradise, but where criticizing the government can send you straight to prison? Welcome to Nicaragua, a land where imposing volcanoes rise above crystal-clear lakes, but where one of Latin America's most repressive regimes also looms. Just picture it, a place where elections are held, but political opponents are jailed before they can even run. A country where priests are detained simply for giving mass, journalists are forced into exile, and even wearing the colors of the national flag can be considered an act of treason. And the most surprising part? This regime is led by a former guerrilla fighter who, decades ago, fought against a dictatorship very similar to the one he himself created. Daniel Ortega, the man who was once a symbol of liberation, now keeps his country under such tight control that more than 500,000 Nicaraguans have fled in recent years. How did this happen? How did a revolutionary movement that promised freedom transform into a machine of oppression? And what's happening to ordinary people in this tropical paradise turned prison? Located in the heart of Central America, Nicaragua is the largest country in the region, with an area of approximately 130,000 square kilometers, almost the size of the state of North Carolina. It borders Honduras to the north and Costa Rica to the south, with the Pacific Ocean to the west and the Caribbean Sea to the east. The country is known as the land of lakes and volcanoes, and for good reason. Lake Nicaragua, at over 8,000 square kilometers, is the largest lake in Central America and one of the few in the world with freshwater sharks. Lake Managua lies near the capital of the same name, where about a quarter of the country's 6.7 million inhabitants live. Nicaragua geography is dominated by a volcanic chain that cuts through the country from north to south, with more than 40 volcanoes, many of them still active. This geological formation divides the country into three distinct regions: the densely populated Pacific lowlands, the Central Highlands, and the Caribbean coast, a region of tropical forests, more isolated and with strong Afro-Caribbean and indigenous cultural influences. The tropical climate provides warm temperatures throughout the year, with two well-defined seasons: dry from November to April and rainy from May to October. This climate condition, combined with fertile volcanic soil, gives Nicaragua enormous agricultural potential. Nicaragua's history is a succession of struggles, revolutions, and foreign interventions. Before the arrival of the Spanish, the territory was inhabited by indigenous peoples such as the Nicaragua, who gave the country its name, and the Cortigas. Spanish colonization, which began in the 16th century, was brutal and drastically reduced the native population through disease, slavery, and massacres. After independence from Spain in 1821, Nicaragua went through decades of political instability, with liberals and conservatives vying for power. It was during this period that United States intervention began, as they viewed the country as strategic for their regional interests. One of the most bizarre episodes of this era was the invasion by American adventurer William Walker, who declared himself president of Nicaragua in 1856, tried to transform the country into a slave state linked to the USA. His adventure ended with his execution, but American influence continued. In the early 20th century, the United States militarily occupied Nicaragua for almost 2 decades. In response, the figure of Augusto Cesar Sandino emerged, a nationalist guerrilla who resisted foreign occupation and became a national hero. However, after the withdrawal of American Marines, Sandino was assassinated on the orders of Anastasio Somoza Garcia, who established one of Latin America's cruelest dynasties. The Somozas ruled with an iron fist for 43 years, amassing fortunes while most of the population lived in misery. It was against this regime that the Sandinista National Liberation Front, FSLN, was formed in the 1960s, inspired by Sandino's ideals and led by young revolutionaries, including Daniel Ortega. After a long civil war, the Sandinistas finally defeated the Somoza dictatorship in 1979, initiating a revolutionary government that implemented significant social reforms. However, the U.S.-funded armed groups opposed to the Sandinistas, the Contras, plunging the country into another devastating conflict. In 1990, exhausted by years of war and economic blockade, Nicaraguans voted against the Sandinistas, and Ortega peacefully handed over power. After 16 years in opposition, He returned to the presidency in 2007, but with rhetoric and practices very different from the original revolutionary ideals. Despite political problems, Nicaragua remains a fascinating tourist destination for adventurers. The country offers an irresistible combination of natural beauty, preserved colonial cities, and low prices that delight travelers. The colonial city of Granada, with its cobblestone streets and colorful mansions, is one of the most visited tourist spots. Founded in 1524, it's the oldest colonial city in Central America, still in its original location. Walking its streets is like stepping back in time. Granada Cathedral, San Francisco Convent, and Lake Nicaragua in the background form a postcard-perfect setting. For adventure lovers, climbing active volcanoes is a unique experience. Cerro Negro near Leon allows for an unusual activity, volcano boarding, where tourists descend a volcanic slope on special boards, reaching speeds of up to 90 kilometers per hour. The Maceo volcano offers a chance to observe glowing lava bubbling in its crater, a mesmerizing sight, especially at night. Nicaragua's beaches are also noteworthy. San Juan del Sur on the Pacific is famous for its perfect surfing waves and lively nightlife. Meanwhile, Corn Island in the Caribbean seems like a forgotten piece of paradise, with crystal clear waters, white sand, and a relaxed pace of life that follows the motto, no stress, no problem. An important tip for those planning to visit the country: although the main tourist attractions are relatively safe, it's advisable to avoid political demonstrations and be careful about what you post on social media while in the country. Criticizing the government can bring serious problems, even for foreigners. The best time to visit is during the dry season, between November and April. In the rainy season, some roads may become impassable, especially in the more remote regions of the country. Nicaragua's economy is one of the poorest in Latin America, heavily based on agriculture and the export of raw materials such as coffee, beef, sugar, and gold. The country also significantly depends on remittances sent by Nicaraguans working abroad, mainly in Costa Rica and the United States. In terms of numbers, the minimum wage in Nicaragua varies between 4,000 and 9,000 cordobas per month, approximately $110 to $245, depending on the sector. Most workers earn around 6,000 cordobas, about $165 monthly. To give an idea of the cost of living, a basic food basket for a family of four costs approximately 15,000 cordobas for $110 per month, which means many families need more than 2 minimum wages just for food. Renting a modest apartment in Managua, the capital, costs between $200 and $350 monthly, while in smaller cities you can find accommodations for $150 to $250. This means many families spend more than half their income just on housing and food. The political crisis that began in 2018 had a devastating impact on the economy. Tourism, which had been growing and becoming an important source of revenue, plummeted. More than 400,000 jobs were lost, and GDP shrank for 3 consecutive years. The COVID-19 pandemic further aggravated the situation, with the government denying the gravity of the crisis. Sanctions imposed by the United States and the European Union against Ortega government officials have also affected the economy. To worsen the scenario, foreign companies are leaving the country due to political instability and legal insecurity. Behind Nicaragua's natural beauty and the warm smile of its people lies a dark reality of political repression that has intensified in recent years. The government of Daniel Ortega and his wife Rosario Murillo has transformed the country into a veritable police state, where any form of dissent is severely punished. Since the protests of 2018, more than 300 people have been killed by police and paramilitary groups loyal to the government. Thousands have been imprisoned, tortured, or forced into exile. The regime has shut down more than 3,000 NGOs and civil society organizations, including hospitals and centuries-old universities. Even the Nicaraguan Red Cross was closed and had its assets confiscated. Religious persecution is particularly shocking. Dozens of priests and bishops have been arrested or expelled from the country. Churches are monitored, and traditional religious processions have been banned. In March 2023, the Vatican closed its embassy in Nicaragua after an escalation of tensions with the regime. Independent media has virtually disappeared. Journalists have been imprisoned or forced to flee, and the few outlets that still exist operate from exile. The internet and social media are monitored, and expressing opinions contrary to the government can result in imprisonment on charges of treason against the homeland. Corruption is endemic. The Ortega Murillo family controls a large part of the country's economy, from television stations to oil companies. Reports from international organizations estimate Ortega's personal wealth at hundreds of millions of dollars, while a majority of the population lives below the poverty line. The 2021 presidential elections were a farce. All opposition candidates were imprisoned months before the vote, allowing Ortega to win with 75% of the votes. International observers were barred, and actual turnout was much lower than officially announced. The exodus of Nicaraguans has reached record levels. Since 2018, more than 500,000 people have fled the country, mainly to Costa Rica, Panama, the United States, and Spain. It's the largest exodus in Nicaragua's recent history, surpassing even the years of civil war in the 1980s. Despite the oppression and difficulties they face, Nicaraguans have not lost their ability to resist and dream of a better future. From inside the country, in whispers, and from outside, in shouts, they continue to fight for the return of democracy to their beloved land. In exile communities in Costa Rica, the United States, and Spain, cultural, political, and humanitarian initiatives flourish. Journalists continue reporting on the country from abroad, keeping the flame of truth alive. Artists transform pain into music, poetry, and visual art, preserving Nicaragua's rich culture even far from home. Inside the country, despite the fear, there are small acts of daily resistance. Merchants who close early on days of mandatory government demonstrations. Young people who share information through underground networks. Farmers who keep traditional agricultural practices alive, ensuring food sovereignty for their communities. And there are hopes for change. International pressure has increased, with more countries condemning human rights violations. Economic sanctions are affecting the regime, and cracks are beginning to appear in the government's support base. History, after all, is movement, and Nicaragua has seen seemingly invincible regimes crumble before. As Nicaraguan poet Ruben Dario said, "If the homeland is small, one dreams big." And Nicaraguans continue to dream of a country where they can live in freedom, express their opinions without fear, and build a prosperous future for the next generations. The Nicaragua we know today is not the final destination, but just a painful station on a journey that, like its volcanic landscapes, is in constant transformation. The day when Nicaraguans can once again fully enjoy the natural and cultural beauty of their country, without the way of oppression, will certainly come.